All right, here we go. So, with a bit of a delay, I'm finally getting to producing a video that I wanted to do for a long time, since it turned out that I won't be able to finish publishing or find a powerful organization enough in terms of media to publish this story. So I'm producing this video where I don't want to go through entire story of Roman Sterlingov and the Bitcoin fork, because if you have a look at Peter McCormack's what Bitcoin did, where he interviewed the legal defense team, Tor Ekeland and Mike Hazard, with whom I'm in contact on Twitter, who provided me the photo from which I actually made this banner, sort of, for this awareness banner. Long story short, it is exactly as this picture says. It's like 7+ years of investigation, millions of dollars of taxpayer funds spent. There's no admin logins, no notes, no communications, no email, nothing. And yet Roman has been in prison since like late April 2021. They seized all of his funds. Because why did they do it? Because they know the case is bullshit, and they basically wanted to make sure that he has no way of defending himself. The Bitcoin community rallied around this innocent, totally innocent person, obviously, because anybody, I kid you not, the case is so fucked up that anybody could be in his shoes. So I don't want to go through all of this. The TLDR is that the government is alleging that he facilitated $332 million or $337 million dollars worth of Bitcoin laundering through mixing service, a custodial mixing service, important to note, Bitcoin fog. But the fact of the matter is he was using it to protect his privacy, and in terms of them alleging that he operated it, they have no evidence at all whatsoever. And it's actually this guy's story that was used by Chainalysis in their Series E funding round to raise $100 million from various investors. This is clearly profits over justice. And the main point in this video that I want to hand over to you guys, or that I want to explain to you, is this main piece of evidence in the criminal complaint. And what I did was to basically reconstruct this part. I did it via geodata. Unfortunately, I've lost my account there, but at least I have a screenshot of how did it look like, the result of my investigation. So I will take this picture, put it out there somewhere, or maybe you can just take a screenshot and you can go ahead and try to do the investigation yourself. But what I do have is this. I did the reconstruction of the blockchain investigation, not just in geodata, but also using breadcrumbs. And basically, as you can see, first of all, they're not sure even what the heck this one is. They are assuming that from this Mt. Gox account over to this Mt. Gox account, they're assuming that all three of these addresses are controlled by the same person. The question mark over here, if you read the entire criminal complaint, which I have downloaded here, I'll add the link to that into the video description if possible. They themselves, they don't even know who controls this address. They're just making assumptions. And also this part over here is very problematic because the timestamp doesn't fit, and it's not a single 35 Bitcoin transaction. In reality, it looks like something like this. If I have a look at the by the way, you can visit torekeland.com/Roman Sterlingov, or just if you go to torekeland.com. If you go just to torekeland.com, they have it in there They have it in there right on the top of the front page. You click basically over here on the second green button, and you have all the details about the case, or at least like a bit of an expanded description what happened. Once again, I recommend you have a look at the podcast that Pete McCormack of What Bitcoin Did conducted with the legal defense team, with both Tor Ekeland and Mike Hazard. But what I wanna focus on in this video is this is actually the test transaction that they allege that he like tested the Bitcoin fork. That's not important, as like I'm pointing out here that in the criminal complaint they said that these are reportedly 4 transactions. Ha ha ha. Just to show you how much they are making stuff up. I mean, the actual like path of the funds sort of quote unquote fits, but it doesn't prove anything. And this is what my main problem is, because I have found the addresses, actually took it from the actual criminal complaint. What I did, I manually created this report. This link over here is linked to the actual report. I made it public. It's all public. You can go ahead and have a look at it yourself. You can go to breadcrumbs, make yourself an account, and then just do the investigation manually yourself if you want. But I'll quickly brief you through it. The problem that I have with it, the main problem that I have with it is that, okay, even if this was true, and even if this was controlled by Roman, which like they don't know who actually controlled this account. I'm not 100% sure they even know these ones are true. The reason being that the Mt. Gox data were proved in front of few courts actually that they've been corrupted. Actually, one of the charges that were successfully pressed against Mark Karpeles, CEO of Mt. Gox, was data corruption. So they're using the first problem is that they're using data from Mt. Gox as a part of evidence, even though it was legally proven in front of the court or in the courtroom that these data never had integrity. Next thing is that the book Traces in the Dark by Andy Greensburg confirms this as well, where Michael Gronager, the CEO of Chainalysis back then, when he was investigating Mt. Gox, he met with Mark Karpeles and basically said to him that the data ain't good. Actually, if we scroll through the subpoena for where basically the legal defense team, where they are requesting Mike Gronager's presence in the courtroom with regards to integrity of the Mt. Gox data. This is a quotation from the book. I actually had the pleasure of reading the entire book. It's a great book, 12 hours straight through the night. I read it through all of it. It's an ode to law enforcement, but a lot of the details in a bunch of various cases that are actually covered in the book, it's immense. It's amazing to read. Suspiciously enough, this particular case, the Bitcoin fork case, doesn't have nowhere near as much detail about the case. It's kind of, there's nothing in terms of incriminating information against Roman Sterlingov. What the book does contain, though, is a lot of evidence, a lot of information that is pointing towards him actually being innocent. That's not just the fact that as this excerpt over here says, where basically in the book Michael Gronager's own account, he says that he got the USB thumb drive. The drive was supposed to contain all of Mt. Gox's financial data, including records of every trade made on the exchange in his 4-year history. But when he decrypted it, Gronager found out it was mysteriously incomplete. Many of the trades were missing the counterparty, the buyer, seller of the other side of the deal, and many other instances have been deleted altogether. So here we have a problem with the integrity of the data. When I was discussing this with Mark Arpeles in a Twitter thread that's right now inaccessible because my Twitter account got suspended, but I suspect that if you do a search on Twitter on Mark Karpeles' Twitter account for Mt. Gox data or data integrity, I think you would found his account. He actually claims that from certain date onwards the data was okay, etc., etc. Now that doesn't matter. It was proven in front of the court that the data had no integrity. He was convicted of data fraud. So any claims that he's making then on Twitter that from such and such date, blah blah blah, it was like doesn't make any sense. So the Mt. Gox data that they were using had no integrity. It was publicized in a book. When Michael Gronager realizes that, oh damn, I actually was talking back then and I actually published this, or my words were published, my own account of the events back then when I was investigating this was published in a book. Which is, if you think about it, it's crazy that the legal defense team can actually read things in a book that the prosecution doesn't want to disclose to them, right? So that's another that adds to the overall smell of the case. It smells way beyond that. I will not go through the revolving door mechanic, people cashing out from the government, getting hired by Chainalysis. I won't go through that. I will leave you with links to threads that cover that, etc. I'll go through a single thing in this, and that is the single most important thing to me, and that is this 6-layer transaction. And I've put together like a 15 pages of report. It contains a lot of Twitter thread links. Unfortunately, as I say, my Twitter account got suspended, but I have this report, and I'm red circling basically that this part over here consists with this part over here, and straight out you can see for yourself already it just doesn't make sense, because they are saying that 35 Bitcoin went from this address here, which they identify as nfs9000hotmail.com. That's this hop over here, basically. All right, and they are showing like 35 Bitcoin went over here. It's here they're detailing it like, okay, this is the 35 Bitcoin went from here over to here, right? Okay, good. So that's the alleged Sterlingov's Mt. Gox account. This is the piggy bank. This is the one with the question mark. Then it goes to NFS 9000. They don't know who this was. They have no idea, and even if it was Roman, I don't think it was. I don't think there's a way to prove that. It's like that they made it up. They don't know who used it. They just found somebody, and because there's so much money at stake, there's so much careers at stake. $8.6 billion valuation of the companies at stake. Obviously, because the moment Roman's freed, all of the DOJ, IRS, FBI, I don't know what else, DHS, I don't know how many organizations within the United States did Chainalysis, sell their services to. Big fat government contracts, tens of billions of dollars a year, basically. That all of a sudden that puts that valuation of the company, into question, and that is the single. It's just about the money. That is the single reason why they don't want to let go, even though it's clear that they don't have the evidence. And apart from many other places where the case breaks down, the Mt. Gox data, the confirmation bias in the investigation, they just, as Tor Ekeland put it on What Bitcoin Did podcast, they really did roll the dice, and they were hoping that he wouldn't go for a trial, because this is actually the first time Chainalysis data, on-chain data analysis or blockchain surveillance analysis is going to be challenged in the courtroom. They just don't want to let go, and this is where it falls apart, right? In the criminal complaint, they say that 35 Bitcoin went from a Mt. Gox account associated with nfs9000hotmail.com to some called bassa99@rambler.ru, which was reportedly another Mt. Gox account. They don't provide the addresses here. So what I did, how did I find out? I basically took this address over here. It's actually badly readable, but I did a couple of guesses and eventually found it out, because the dates, the numbers, the amount of. If you have a look at the report and click the actual transactions, you see that the amount of Bitcoin fits, the date fits, etc. Except for this one, because there is no 35 Bitcoin transaction taking place on 20th of October 2011 at 0701. It just isn't. This is what really happened. So I took the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe they're doing the same thing over here, right? It's not a single transaction, but what they want to show is like, okay, 35 Bitcoin got sent from this account to this account, and this was the intermittent hop, the interim hop or the mid hop address. All right, this one fits, right? Okay, from here over to the piggy bank, they don't know who this is, goes to nfs9000hotmail.com, and then the 35 Bitcoin, right? So this is 31 and 4.9. This is your 35 Bitcoin. This is your 35 Bitcoin, and then it because we have to connect it back somewhere, right? So I did, and found out that it was split into many various transactions. These are reportedly all Mt. Gox addresses, although to me it looks more like a mixing service. Lots of threads, and then it all seems to be connected over here, which as per breadcrumbs seems to be another Mt. Gox address. But if you look at the ingress and egress volumes, it's like 8 Bitcoin. So 4 Bitcoin went over here, 20 Bitcoin is somewhere out here, somewhere went somewhere, various directions, and then all that connects together back is like 8 Bitcoin. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is all made up. This is like all made up, and then they're saying that from over here, somebody sent like $80 to some other exchange, and from there 77.6 Liberty Reserve dollars, and that he like paid for the Bitcoin fork, for the Bitcoin fork domain, which is a ClearNet, by the way. This is a ClearNet. Just so you know, Bitcoin fork wasn't operating on ClearNet. Bitcoin fork was operating on the darknet. It was operating. You had to use Tor to get there, right? So this kind of is another thing that doesn't work out, and it's not illegal, even if which I don't think is the case, but even if Roman did all these transactions, and even if it connects somewhere, which doesn't seem to be the case per the investigation I did, again, you can check yourself, you can expand all the ingress, egresses, you can try to connect it yourself. I don't think that's the case. 35 Bitcoin just got split into many other transactions, and as far as I'm concerned, all this shit here is just made up. And so they have nothing, and even this 6-layer transaction that he allegedly performed means nothing, because registering a ClearNet domain isn't illegal. What's more, if you go and actually listen to the What Bitcoin Did episode podcast with Oracle and Mike Hazard, you will find out that the behavior on Kraken account, because Roman was using his Kraken account to live off of his greatly appreciated investment, was like he kept on depositing funds first as he consolidated his appreciated Bitcoin from many wallets into his Kraken account. Then he was living off of it. He was like He was like selling it off to live off of it, off of his investments. And because he learns that Bitcoin is an open book, as you can see, we're tracking the transactions. Here we're like basically reconstructing what Chainalysis or whoever back then did this. This marketing material. This isn't a piece of evidence. This is like a cute marketing material designed to lure a non-technical jury into thinking that they actually are some super techie guys. No, guys, they aren't. I've been doing on-chain analytics, market-related. By the way, I don't spy on people. I'm not tracking funds. Just I just the case. Just resonated so negatively with me that as an innocent guy in the jail that I went and decided to reconstruct this stuff that we're looking at right here right now, exactly as I'm pointing out in my report. This over here is representing actually this part over here. The icons here are different because they were actually labeling them as Quadriga CX on breadcrumbs. I did notify the guys, hey, look, guys, Quadriga CX launched like, I don't know, 2013 or something. We're talking about 2011 transactions. This can't possibly be Quadriga CX wallet. So then they fixed it. I'm not sure if they fixed it right. I'm not sure if this is actually correct. Either way, this doesn't fit with this as I'm showing in my report, which was it's not a report. It's actually like a 15 page 15 page long form article that I was originally writing for Bitcoin Magazine. They didn't like it. I tried to approach various media with this. I tried to approach The Last American Vagabond. I tried to approach Whitney Webb. I tried to approach a couple of media out there. Nobody was interested in this story, so that's the reason why I'm doing this little video here. Also, because I was asked by somebody on LinkedIn to provide a bit more information, I sent them the document. This document, I sent them the link to what Bitcoin did podcast, and I'm going to send them this video as well. The TLDR here, this infographic complaint doesn't mention any mixer used for the 35 Bitcoin transactions to the .ru owned associated account, nor do they provide any evidence in the criminal complaint itself that Roman indeed did control the addresses they claim he has, right? So what I'm saying here, basically, this isn't right. They're not mentioning that this was mixed up, although this looks to me like a typical mixing behavior. Just as over here you can see that this is they alleging that he tested that like the funds came from over here. This is like what they label in the criminal complaint as Mt. Gox account 1. They alleging that some Bitcoin went from here over here and that he mixed it up. They mentioned that this was like reportedly this was like 4 transactions. As you can see, there's many more transactions than that. This part actually fits, to be fair. This part actually fits with the criminal complaint, but they have a typo in the address. I actually had to look it up manually. In the document, in the doc file, I open up my way of thinking actually and describe how did I come across this, and then they're alleging that this was some sort of beta test. Worst case scenario for Roman, if this was indeed him doing the transaction, is that this is like an evidence of him using the Bitcoin fork. How did they came to the conclusion that this is a beta test? I don't know. The phrase that they are actually using here is, if you have a look at this, it's like, based on my trading experience, I know that software and web developers typically beta test new server. No, he could have, like, okay, based on my trading experience. Okay, so I'm a market participant in the Bitcoin space for the past 5 years. And based on my training and experience, you know, when you want to use a mixer, you know, you want to test it out. You send a little bit over there to see, because it's a custodial service. Bitcoin Fork is custodial service, which is important to note that any custodial mixing services break any and all sorts of your on-chain analytics. And the Bitcoin Fork servers, to my understanding, they were actually seized. So they should be able to really like reconstruct the complete picture. To me, it doesn't seem like this was the case. So this means nothing. Even if he like did use Bitcoin Fork, it's not illegal to use mixing service. It's not even illegal to in my opinion, to run it, but whatever. There's like another thing that doesn't fit that lawyers mention in the case is like he was supposed to launder like 300 million of facilitated laundering of 300 plus million of dollars worth of Bitcoin. If this was case, you do the math, 0.5 to 1.5% of fees that these services typically take, right? He should have had a lot more profits. He should have made a lot more money off of it than they actually seized from him. They seized like $2 million worth of Bitcoin from him. So it's like at least like 10 times less than he should have, just if we're conservative with the fees that he should collected. Also, his Kraken account that he was using was receiving no funds at that point. Like he was spending his Bitcoin, there was nothing coming in. So if you're running a mixing service, right, you're getting rich. You know, a bunch of people are mixing the Bitcoins. They're sending you their Bitcoins. You know, you mix them up for them, take a little bit of a fee, and then you withdraw. Then you probably you want to collect those fees back somewhere, right? Nothing of that sort ever happened. That's another point, right? But I wanted to focus on this part over here. I wanted to focus on the fact that basically the 6-layer transaction, this is like, with all due respect, it's full of shit, right? I did this manually. I manually basically reconstructed this investigation TLDR, right? They don't mention that there's any mixer. Gox data was of dubious integrity, right? I do mention the reply from Mark Harpeles to my thread. That's not there anymore, but his reply should be that at the post June 2011, he says that it was verified. In my opinion, directly contradicts the accounts of the data integrity in the book by Chainalysis. The book is not by Chainalysis, but the comments are by Chainalysis CEO, or nowadays Chainalysis CEO Michael Kroneger himself, who cowardly make a U-turn with regards to serving a testimony just recently. That's the file over here. I'll send you a link to this file over here. This is there's this part right here on the page 9. Part 2, Michael Kroneger's counsel accepted service of the subpoena only to later reject service of the subpoena. So if you really believe in all of the marketing hype that's around your company, if you believe that you did a good job, if you are so sure of yourself that you did a good job, if you are so sure of yourself that you did a good job, that the blockchain surveillance that you did is perfectly fine, that in my humble opinion, you wouldn't do a U-turn. You wouldn't go ahead and like all of a sudden do a U-turn and say, no, I'm not going to give you the testimony, right? So that's just the more this case develops, with every development of this case, it's like more and more it's becoming clear that somebody just wanted to raise $100 million, and regardless of whether we have the actual perpetrator or not, let's find some little sacrificial lamb over here. Let's grab him, let's put him into jail, and let's hope that he doesn't go for trial. This is what happened. And so if you are a regulator in a country that is responsible for basically purchasing of blockchain surveillance software, if you are a law enforcement officer responsible for purchasing software used to to track transactions on the blockchain, you may want to reconsider if Chainalysis was up until this point your favorite company of choice, because it's a crooked company. The CEO is clearly, it's like, doesn't have a spine. Funny thing is that recently, about, I don't know, about a month ago or something, the Mt. Gox arrests came up on a couple of cryptocurrency media. At the same time, Tor Ekeland website got under attack, and their website was down for like a week or 2 weeks or something. At that point, I still had my personal Twitter account working, so I was just shilling the case everywhere. I was basically sharing the picture. Back to this one, I was sharing this picture with a link to archive, because at that point the actual website didn't work, so I was shilling it along with the archive of the web page. It's actually now working again. You can donate Bitcoin, you can donate Monero, you can donate using Lightning. You can donate, you can send some dollars over if you want. If you are a Bitcoiner, and if you understand the logic of the fact that anybody could be, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything illegal. It's just a guy who happened to get the hodl and keep on stacking and stay humble stuff earlier on than most of us. And then, you know, Bitcoin appreciated. He was living off of it. He was traveling across Europe, traveling into United States. In 2017, when he was visiting United States, they were like following him. They did like a full surveillance on him. They basically they tried everything, and they found nothing. Another thing that is very interesting, and it's highly unusual, is the fact that the legal defense team actually let Roman on a pre-trial stand, and the investigators there, after, imagine this, right? After spending 7 years investigating this guy, spying on him for years and years, watching every one of his transactions and all that stuff. They basically didn't know who his friends were. They didn't know what his employment was. They didn't know where did he take the money to buy Bitcoin. Like, if you spend millions of dollars across the span of 7 years investigating someone, and you are asking that kind of questions, in my humble opinion, you should be fired right the fucking second this occurs, because you didn't do your job. You didn't do your job at all as an investigator. You are just flexing your government-backed muscle against an innocent man, hoping that he'll crumble, and then he'll admit to doing something that he actually never did. Right? That's the case. This is the case. So again, I'm urging anybody on the law enforcement side, on the side of whoever that is looking at this video, that is responsible for purchasing or recommending the services for there's many companies out there. I will not name any, so that I'm not accused of getting paid by any company. I'm not going to name anybody, any company. I'm just going to say, don't use Chainalysis, because that company is capable of doing a lot less than their super marketing aura suggests that they actually can do, right? Another thing pertaining to this case is like, there's a guy from Czech Republic. Actually, his name is Aleš Janda, one of the Chainalysis most senior blockchain transaction tracing specialists. He's been with the company ever since their size was under 6 employees back at the very beginnings. They actually hired him because he built the tool walletexplorer.com. By the way, if you want to use this tool, don't use it without a VPN, because Chainalysis has like an IP IP address scraper on this website. They are very interested in who is using this tool, because it's a free tool that prior to Chainalysis, many law enforcement agencies all over the world were using. Probably still are using those ones that don't have like a Chainalysis kind of other company kind of tool. So don't use it without a VPN or without obfuscating the source. Especially if you're looking to trace your own transactions. When I was investigating or reinvestigating or like redoing this investigation, I was using Wallet Explorer also. But since I wasn't looking at my own addresses, I couldn't care less. So there was a live stream interview on November 22nd, 2020. It was conducted in Czech language. I spent 3 days going through this and translating word by word as precisely as I can from Czech to English. And here's what Aleš Janda has to say, right? So he's asked what it is that he actually does at the company. So, quote, I worked as a blockchain analyst and I'm trying to de-anonymize transactions, which means I'm trying to figure out the receiver of the transactions and I'm trying to figure out the sender of the transactions respectively, right? So immediately right off the bat, kind of I don't sense like this is a certainty, right? This doesn't sound nowhere near close to certainty or even high probability, right? Let's go onwards, right? Right there, personally, this is my own opinion that I've said. I still have the same opinion. Right there, I personally have a big problem with the whole Chainalysis marketing-driven overblown aura. About hang on, we haven't even started anything except from the part in which the host asks Janda about what is it exactly the company does. So I quote, software where the person who has it can enter some Bitcoin address or some other address or a day or transaction ID. He enters that in there. He can kind of see where it went from, and he can tell where it went from here, then here, and that's the exchange, this one, and he can kind of figure out what happened to the money and then where it went from, like roughly where it went and what that might mean. Okay, again, there's like no certainty, implies no certainty whatsoever. We're talking about courtroom usage here. In my humble opinion, anything that implies heuristics, which is an ancient Greek word for guessing, has no place whatsoever in the courtroom, if you ask me, right? Let's continue. Second thing that this does, Chainalysis calls it know your transaction. It's kind of a paraphrase of know your customer. It's a service for exchanges where there are also some incoming transactions from the user. And they'll call us up and they'll say, I've got this transaction here, some API, and the API will tell them where it's coming from. Roughly like it's coming from an exchange, or it's coming from a scam, or it's coming from a gambling site, and then roughly like us telling them that this transaction comes by 30% from an exchange, 20% comes from mining, and 60% from something else, or we don't know. So Chainalysis, one of the best, most senior guys admitting right off the bat here, 3 years ago almost, or we don't know, for example. So it might also be that they might not know, right? I am stressing these yellow marked words from the interview. I'll include the link to the actual original interview. I'll also include the source of these excerpts. I've got like the full text Czech version, and then side by side I've got a full text English version translated by me to my best possible ability when it comes to translation between Czech and English. Been a network engineer for 14 years. As you can hear, I don't have a problem with speaking English fluently, pretty much, right? So here I comment on that, kind of roughly what might that mean, roughly like, or we don't know, does it say, right? Blah blah blah. You can read the whole thing. Then another part of the interview, Janda tells the story of how and when did he join the company. Right? So I joined, it was more than 5 years ago. So this was in 2020. This interview took place in November 2020. So he joined them in 2015 or something. Back then it was a startup, a fledgling company. I was there when I joined them. There were 6 of us. Today Chainalysis is about 200 people. So I guess today it's a lot more, but as of November 2020 they had about 200 people. And then he says, back then I was doing a job that today there are about 40 people. So nowadays probably a lot more. I'm now looking at LinkedIn, and once in a while some guy pops up and being super happy. Oh, I received my Chainalysis certification. I've received my Chainalysis certifications. Like I was like, from time to time I just can't hold my emotions, and I go ahead and comment on that. Like, congratulations, you got played. Like you have received a certification from a company that values profits over justice, and actually is responsible for having an innocent man in prison right now. And then he says, back then I was kind of scratching my head on my own. He says in Czech, jsem si to tam tak šudlal, which literally suggests that he was one of the very few, if not the only one. I don't think only one, but one of the very few people that were doing the blockchain tracing back then, actually. Right. Here I comment again some rationale why I don't think that this is a good source of evidence in front of a court. Then, in terms of finding someone guilty or innocent, unless we're beyond reasonable doubt certain, we should deem the person innocent. In my book, if you call it forensics, there is zero space for probabilities. If it's forensics, it's 100% certainty. If it's heuristics, you don't call it forensics, right? Make up your fucking mind. I'm sorry for being rude, for the profanity, but just I can't stand having an innocent man in prison because of this sort of stuff. Okay, the inputs, that's actually where it's being sent from. The outputs is where it's being sent to. Well, and we very typically, so this is like one of the clustering logics. Very typically, those inputs all belong to one person. So that's like it's actually assumption. The whole logic of clustering is actually assumption. At the end of this document, there's a link to a bunch of websites which are dealing with privacy on Bitcoin, and also a blog note from the company for whom I'm doing community management and market analysis, CryptoQuant, because they have to identify the sources and destinations of the funds in order to be able to do the nice graphs where you see all sorts of aggregated data. They also have to do clustering. They actually describe how does it work and what the caveats are. So I'll add links to that as well. You can pretty much explore it on your own. So here Janda recalls how he got hired by Chainalysis in the first place. As mentioned before, he was wallet explorer. It was on 7+ years, 7+ year comfortable taxpayer funded. Most Chainalysis revenue comes from the law enforcement's contracts, or at least for the vast part of my company's history, that was the case. Tenure with the company, interestingly enough, the way he describes it again, totally in contradiction with how blockchain surveillance is being perceived by the public at large today. Because the marketing that is being built, and interestingly enough, it's just Chainalysis that sort of has this aggressive marketing aura, marketing campaign, building this we are bulletproof. This is the message that marketing campaign is sending. We are bulletproof, and yet one of their most senior guys says not just that the software, but the general idea, the general principles behind the blockchain quote unquote forensics are nowhere near certainty, right? So here he describes how he got hired and what his walletexplorer.com actually does. It's walletexplorer.com, and it's actually Block Explorer, which also does two extra things. First, it tries to associate those addresses that it thinks belong to the same person or service, and secondly, it identifies those services that it knows. So that's, by the way, the walletexplorer.com wasn't updated for 2016 for 7 years in terms of identifying individual addresses. So right now it's pretty much useless in terms of we want to. It's good for learning how the blockchain tracing works, but it's not good in terms of actually identifying what the endpoints are, who owns them, right? Then he's asked who the typical Chainalysis client was, and is as of and prior to at least November 2020, typical client is a government agency, the police, right? So so that's that. Just to again make sure that we know or establish that this is like all taxpayer money being spent on putting innocent people on prison, basically. His further account of rationalizing the Chainalysis typical clientele raises a lot of questions about how does it likely work in terms of which side provides what sets of data to whom. He says a lot of money is laundered, plus also stolen. Bitcoins are stolen or cryptocurrencies are stolen, and actually without some tool, it's almost impossible to find out where it went. What to do next? I can't identify the person who did it because without some tool, I can just see that from address A, it went to address B, then to address C, then to address D. There it is now. What? Who is it? What kind of person is he? And then if it goes to E, then this is a timestamp of the interview, like what or what. So the typical user is just they are police in different states, right? So this is raising a question. Chainalysis, based on what they're saying, they're basically doing this. What I did manually here, they probably have a sophisticated, AI or machine learning algorithms doing this. So there's a lot of automation involved, and they're doing basically this. But he doesn't answer the question: how did they get to identify the actual the how did they identify who it was that was controlling the address at the point of at the time when the transaction was actually made, right? So this is a question that my document raises here. To get back onto the topic of wording he uses to describe the craft, I call it a craft, of tracing transactions on the blockchain was the notoriously overhyped aura of Chainalysis being the one and only, the all-powerful thing when it comes to destroying people's right to privacy. Here's a few more comments from the expert himself, again, worded in a manner completely contradictory to how the company likely being perceived by the public at large. Like, for example, with Bitcoin, you can see the amounts. With Bitcoin, there is which Bitcoin there is a change address. Like if I send something somewhere, the rest is sent back to me somewhere, and I can pretty much guess. What that back was, like sending it back to the change address, and that way I can see what the person is sending, for example, right? Then further reinforce my question about how do they actually ID the wallets to a person hinted at previously. Here's another example of him formulating his response in a way that inevitably leads one to wondering about these things. If somebody is going to get a sense of where I'm at when I'm at the computer, and they're going to compare it to some wallet that's going to be to see if those transactions match up with what I was doing that at the moment, then they're going to recognize whether or not that could have been me. So what does this tell you? This implies that Chainalysis ain't just looking at the blockchain, right? Which is an open book. That's one of Michael Gronager's arguments in one of his comments in the book Traces in the Dark, that it's like alibistically saying, oh, it's a public blockchain. If you're using it, you should be prepared for the fact that somebody can watch it. Yeah, that's all right. That's all nice and dandy. But what tools do you use to identify the IP address? What tools do you use to get a sense of who owns that IP address? How do you actually make sure that at the point of the transaction, the person that you are saying that was sitting at the computer actually was sitting at the computer, right? And all sorts of other privacy-related questions, right? And again, the wording could have been. So where's the certainty? Where's the forensics here? Like we've been talking for several thousands of minutes now. We've been going to the conversation that there ain't no forensics, zero forensics so far. Let's continue, all right? And it's so next he generalizes the answer to a question about what all sorts of shitcoins does Chainalysis provides their privacy invading services for in yet another interesting way. And it's always kind of a trade-off between whether somebody is using it and how difficult it is to do, right? So he's implying that basically if you are using some obscure little used blockchain, some little altcoin to launder the money, something that Chainalysis doesn't have specifically tools built for, then pretty much they're blind. They can't do the stuff, right? And then comes a question. There's another That's another thing. This is actually quite, we're getting to the really important stuff when it comes to questioning their ability to do the transactions, because and by the end of this video it'll become clear to you that the only thing that has anything to do, anything even remotely close to forensics that Chainalysis does, is when you send your Bitcoin from KYC account on Binance over to a KYC account on Kraken, for instance, or on Gemini, or if you send it from Binance to Coinbase or whatnot. That's when you can talk about forensics, actually, provided that then some mixing done in the middle. Why, right? So first, when it comes to mixing, or CoinJoin, he's asked about that. First, his trade up pretty much leans on what likely must have been a pretty strict worded non-disclosure agreement with his employer, by not really saying much, at least at first. Janda just mentions that Wasabi and Samurai are both good mixers, that they work completely differently, and that then he shuts himself up and continues to give rather vague answers. But he really talks like that, by the way. He's stuttering a lot. It was very difficult to translate, very difficult to do it word by word. I spent like 3 or 4 days non-stop listening to the guy. It was pure suffering, but here's the results. I guess I'm not allowed to say like what we figured out, what we're able to do. I'm sure it's some sort of complication. We're talking about forensics. The actual result, no matter how many complications are along the way, should be a certainty. If it's not certainty, if it's not 100% certain, you're not talking about forensics, all right? However, again, if that person makes a mistake, and like not making a mistake is not so easy, then we're able to trace him somehow. So he's implying OPSEC. It's very difficult to have perfect OPSEC. It is. That's true. So yes, I generally can't say what we can and can't do. Something is possible, something, and then they were talking over each other. I couldn't really. Like 20 times I tried to listen to it. I tried to filter out. I couldn't figure it out. But it implies that something is possible, something, and then he could have said is more difficult, is impossible, is completely impossible, is, you can fill in whatever it is here, but it's not something it's possible, something is certain. That sentence wouldn't make a sense, right? Would it? Later on in the interview, he takes one of the viewers' question about CoinJoins, and boy, oh boy, does it get interesting again here, right after he gives a high-level explanation of CoinJoin as basically multiple parties combining and swapping their funds among themselves in order to obfuscate the source and destination for the individual participating in the transactions. It's a little pseudonymous in the sense that, again, a timestamp, I know that the person is one of those, or maybe 5 outputs or 10 outputs of those, maybe 5 outputs or 10 outputs. I don't know which one, but I know it's one of them. What does this tell you? Implies probability. All right, here I'm referring back to the funny infographic, and actually I did a let me see. I did a no. I did spreadsheets. Yeah, not spreadsheets. There was a picture. Yeah, I did. This is what I did from Wallet Explorer. I did the 31.002, like the one I am assuming I assumed it's a mixer. Actually, if you look at Wallet Explorer, it's a mixer. This is like the account of the entire mixing transaction, the one that we're talking about. This is the one, right? From over here, this is where it says that beyond here it got mixed basically. So if we get back to the picture, this is like the entire mixing transaction, and the mixers or the coin joins work like this. It's a question of liquidity. If there's only few little bitcoins of liquidity available within the CoinJoin anonymity set, and you're trying to launder, quote unquote, 100 bitcoins, it's not going to work. You're going to be mixing your own coins among yourself with yourself. It doesn't help you. So the anonymity set, the liquidity for the CoinJoin has to be much higher then whatever that the heck it is that you're trying to obfuscate the source and destination of for, right? So here we have like a bunch of transactions. You can see the receipt amount, sent amounts, and you can see that for 31 bitcoins there was kind of a good anonymity set, right? There was like 1000 bitcoins, 600 bitcoin, 50, 450, 90, you know, they were all higher, they were all higher, right, they were all higher, higher amounts. So those 31 bitcoins got there. This is what actually, yeah. This is one of the replies that I got from Mark Arpeles about, and that's another thing that complicates stuff. They weren't reusing addresses, by the way, and Aleš Janda addresses that in the interview also, that any custodial service back then, and right now it's not the case. Right now you're gonna, when you KYC yourself on an exchange, you're gonna get an address and you're gonna be keep on using that address, which is bad for privacy. But back then every deposit basically was given a new address. Before hierarchistically deterministic addresses were even a thing, they were sort of emulating that function. Before hierarchistically deterministic wallets, there was this logic or mechanic where basically every you had like 100 addresses associated with the wallet, and you could cycle through them. So back to this, right? So this implies probability. I did the calculation of the probability for the given for the uh, for the for the mixage over here. I did the calculation like how many of the like a pure stupidly rudimentary basic math. I can't do it off the top of my head, but there was like, I don't know, 16 or 17 or how many, or 12, or I don't know how many of them were eligible to kind of fit within the liquidity set with implied probability of like, I don't know, 20% or something, or maybe 25% or something. So that means that they would in the courtroom, as far as forensics are concerned, or as far as certainty beyond or beyond reasonable doubt certainty, they would have to prove that uh, those that they don't know who it is, they would have to either prove their identity or somehow rule out that it wasn't the one that they're alleging that did the transaction. Okay. It was right. Okay, here it's 16.6 variable probability here. Okay, here I describe it, but after I then realized I made a mistake with the calculation, and the probability was a bit higher. It was like 21, 23%, something like this. Or maybe this was the fixed already. I'm not sure. Here here's the screenshot. Here I do it. Anyway, back to deconstructing the interview as the specialist wording contradictory to what Chainalysis claims of being capable, and gets better from here on, because he probably remarks on an explanatory journey in the middle of which he realizes he's pushing the likely NDA with his employer. And so if I can somehow find out which one it is, or if I'm an investigator and say, well, I'm interested in all these paths and see if it leads somewhere, which is of course more complicated. Plus, he can mix it up several times. So then there are really lots of paths, but they're sort of right. Sometimes it's quite difficult to sort of mix it up properly. My guess is that maybe part of the thing that partially he was implying here, the liquidity within an anonymity set problem that the coin joins have, it just doesn't end up connecting somewhere because the person has actually to like end up connecting it somewhere. So this is what I've mentioned previously with regards to the to this one, the 35 Bitcoin that they're saying, according to this, you know, they would have to connect somewhere here on another Mt. Gox account, but this part here is like, it's like over, it's like this part over here that just doesn't make sense. Also, like this almost 5 Bitcoin over here that went some to like a BitPay service. It's like, that's like a payment processor, right? and there was like, okay, there was like $100 went to a payment processor. But where's the Mt. Gox account? Is this like the Mt. Gox account that received the 35 Bitcoin, but this is just 1.97 Bitcoin over here? So it's like somebody either didn't know what was doing, or they, as Toreklan says, they just rolled the dice. This is a perfect evidence of that. So connecting it somewhere, it's pseudonymous. That pseudonymous means that nobody knows who it is until somebody gives it that pseudonym, until somebody finds out, right? With CoinJoin, according to theory, it's not detectable. According to practice, it's often somehow possible. Often somehow possible, albeit as with some lesser or greater effort, or actually greater. So he implies that it takes a lot of effort and that it's not always possible. So again, there's probability involved, and there's even the possibility of them actually not being able to do the stuff. Just at the beginning, at the very beginning of the interview, he says, or we don't know, right? So one of the most senior guys within Chainalysis right off the bat tells you, or we don't know. And then we get to CoinJoin and he says, like, it's a lot of effort and it's often somehow possible. Like, give me a break with your super powerful marketing aura. Like, grow a spine, Gronager, if you're listening to this. Last part of this quotation. However, CoinJoin has just that as a specialty that I can see right there on the blockchain, which are the options. So that's back to, I know that one of them outputs is the guy that I'm looking for. I just don't know which one it is. And I'm looking to see where the funds connect again. So I have options. So optionality implies probability. It has nothing to do with forensics. Okay? If it ain't certainty, don't call it forensics. I will be repeating this throughout the rest of the video because it just pisses the heck out of me. All right, there are comments something here that the Kraken account. This is where I'm coming back to Tor Ekeland's comment where he says that they just rolled the dice in the interview. Back to the aforementioned important note. When I would maybe still when I would say when mixers are provided by a service, so this is we're talking about a custodial. All of the stuff that I was talking about with regards to CoinJoin was like a CoinJoin implying on-chain, directly on-chain, meaning the actual trace isn't like broken actually, but it's just mixed up, meaning like that it's the outputs and inputs of various users are mixed up among themselves, making it nearly impossible or at least extremely difficult to ascertain like who is who or what went where, right? Now we're getting to the interesting part because Bitcoin fork was a custodial service, meaning since the US government ceased, as far as I am aware, the Bitcoin fork servers, they should be able to reconstruct from that data what was going on. They should be able to put together the picture, right? So when I would maybe still when I would say when mixers that are provided by a service, like a send bitcoins to a service and I'll withdraw them, there is the disadvantage that that the service can take it away from me and I can do anything with it. So it's like implying like a third-party trust here, right? Not your keys, not your coins. That's what is implying here, right? That's the downside, but it has the advantage that the bitcoins, the ones on the input and the ones on the output, are not visible on the blockchain. There's not actually a direct link to what went where. Only the mixer itself knows that. But with CoinJoin, it's obvious where it went. I just don't know which one it is, but those options are relatively few. So relatively few depends on what the relatively few is an overstatement, clearly, because it all depends on the liquidity of the given anonymity set versus how many bitcoins are actually trying to quote unquote obfuscate or launder, right? And then that's like the end of his quotes. And here I am linking basically supporting materials that confirm or support in some way whatever we went through above. It's like all on en.bitcoin.it wiki. There's some in real life examples. There's this Medium article with an introduction to Bitcoin heuristics. So we're talking heuristics, right? Uh, I'll include all of the links in my document, the description of the video, and you can go ahead and study for yourself. That I'm not making any of this stuff up. I'm really critically assessing Chainalysis' ability to do whatever the heck there is that they claim that they can do. And I am not, it's not from my head. I am quoting the guy that was with the company since there were 6 people big, okay? And I am supporting then my own conclusions about what does it mean with additional materials. I have to give him credit. He is, and I'm not diminishing his expertise. He is an expert. He's a very good expert in terms of he understands how Bitcoin actually works. He understands the blockchain, tracing. It's not forensics. Let's not call it forensics. It's blockchain tracing. He's very good at that. And it is actually thanks to his mention of these sources that I was able to find them, to go through them, and to be shocked by the fact that a lot of the stuff, or almost all of the stuff that he said in terms of like how reliable blockchain surveillance it is, or how reliable it is in terms of like knowing with certainty who and where. This actually supports the idea, all of the materials here support the idea that it's nowhere near certainty or nowhere near as high probability as the marketing materials from Chainalysis would have you one believe, right? So this is all I have for you today. I will add all the links that are working, because obviously the threads that I've made, unfortunately my Twitter account got suspended, so they're not available. But the Jack Mink's thread that unveils the revolving door is out there for you to read. There's this wiki for you out there to read, the Medium article from CryptoQuant where they say mention the flaws that the whole heuristics, the clustering, stuff has, etc. So I'm just gonna read you my final thoughts. This what's this 17 pages document. I hope I haven't left out anything of importance while trying to illustrate not just the sheer corruption, profiteering, and care-driven revolving career, actually. Fixing, talking about fixing my own stuff. Career-driven revolving door dynamic going on between the DOJ and Chainalysis. The questionable blockchain investigation work when they did on that they did on this case, as well as the sheer lack of evidence on or its integrity. That's obviously referring mainly to Mt. Gox data, despite this being a 7-year-long, multi-billion-dollar case investigation, but also the fact that the entire surveillance capitalism thing, especially with regards to the immutable ledger Bitcoin, is very problematic as well as dangerous things on its own. At the very end, I'd love to invite the reader to consider supporting Roman Sterlingov's defense team. The Roman story could be the story of any of us, any Bitcoiner or cryptocurrency user for that matter. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for considering support the Free Roman movement on social media too. If you, for whatever reason, can't afford or don't want to provide financial support, please be so kind and consider at least helping raising awareness with this case. So this is basically just you taking this picture and sharing it and shilling it, because it doesn't matter whether you have a million Satoshi or whether you have tens of thousands of Bitcoins or anything in between. This could be you, right? Just because you care for your privacy and you mix every single transaction, just because you used a certain mixing service that the government might have a problem with. They actually, the problem with Bitcoin fog is, in my opinion, just to conclude, they just don't know who did it. They just don't know who was running it. They don't know who operated it, and they had to find a patsy. So they found a guy a Swedish citizen who's originally from Russia. It's actually a Swedish citizen, and they busted his ass at LAX in April 2021, and ever since then he's been in jail for nothing. Right? He's facing 50 years to life in prison, and they're betting all everything. They're betting everything on the hopes that he wouldn't go for a trial. Where he is going for a trial, even though they seized all of his funds, and it's amazing. I'm so thankful to see that the Bitcoin community rallied around the guy. The QR code over here that I've added into the infographic that I've made, that's a QR code that Mike Hazard provided to me via Twitter. Of course, trust but verify. For whatever reason you don't trust this QR code, you're welcome to go to torekelan.com /Roman Sterlingov and contribute to the case this way over here. It doesn't matter which way the funds get there, whether you use Monero. Understandably, you might want to use Monero because you don't want the government to know that you're supporting this case. You might use Bitcoin. You want to use Bitcoin, do that. You can donate using Lightning. You can donate fiat. Feel free to do so. I actually encourage you to do so. This is a case that could have major implications going forward for any and all Bitcoin users. So I urge you to consider donating to the Legal Defense Fund, and if you for whatever reason don't want or can't support the case financially or can't send any Bitcoin or whatnot, please, for the love of God, go ahead and share this video. Share the infographic and then make sure that people are aware. I tried various media. I wrote up the article, spent like a week working on it, and nobody was interested for whatever reason. Would you be please so kind and see if you could help free Roman? Thank you very much for your attention. And next up, I'll do some market updates, but from time to time I will update you on what have I learned on the case development. I will always be shilling this infographic. I'll always be shilling. Could you please, guys, support the case? We don't want no innocent man in prison, and especially we don't want an innocent Bitcoiner in prison. It's like Bitcoin isn't a crime, mixing your coins isn't a crime, self-custody isn't a crime, and whoever tells you otherwise, tell them to get the fuck out. All right, over and out. See you next time.